coming out.
There's a lot going to happen there. We know. Okay, I want to pivot to Tony Fauci. You know, McCarthy's got a tendency to get in front, jump on the bandwagon after it's gone. You do the pick and shovel work. You've put this bill out about Fauci months ago, I think. We've been on Fauci since January 2020. Very first show we lit this guy up, right?
Okay, you want to pivot to Fauci, but what the fuck have either of you done for America, or about COVID? What has conservatism done? I'm aware that Fauci isn't completely innocent, but who are either of you or any Republican to criticize Dr. Fauci?
As a total phony. Walk us through the case. Walk us through Marjorie Taylor Greene's case against Tony Fauci.
Well, first, I would like to say to all your viewers, you all owe Steve and his team a huge debt of gratitude because they have been telling the truth about Anthony Fauci from day one. So thank you, Steve, for being one of the few that get the truth out early and right away. And then we also need to thank President Trump. He's been right all along about this virus and about the origins.
What truth has Steve and his crew or Donald told about Tony? This coming from a woman who childishly harassed AOC through her mail slot, and then said people being forced to wear a mask is the equivalent to Jews wearing a star or being treated like second-hand citizens. You wouldn't have to say anything about COVID or wearing a mask if either Steve or Donald were right. Your argument against wearing a mask wouldn't be rights or freedom, because the Democrats wouldn't have a valid argument against Steve or Donald if they are right. Rights or freedom are bullshit anyway because COVID will infect everybody. None of you Republicans would be running around calling mask wearers sheep and even trying to force them to stop wearing a mask, which is a fascist contradiction to this common Republican position.
Dr. Anthony Fauci needs to get a lawyer because he is liable. I believe he's liable, criminally liable for what has happened with COVID-19. That's why I wrote the Fauci Act and introduced it back in early April.
Okay, that's great, Marjorie, but get to the point here. Steve asked you to provide a walkthrough, but you've only said that Tony is going to need a lawyer and accuse him of COVID-related crimes, after you've just kissed Steve and Donald's ass.
Fauci, because
hang over a second. Hang over a second. You're saying fire Fauci is one thing. Back up. What do you mean criminally liable? That's where you're into a whole different category. Why do you say that about Dr. Tony Fauci? He's Biden promoted him to chief medical advisor to the president. He's lauded as Saint Tony Fauci on TV every day. Why do you say you're just not for firing him? You're for bringing criminal. You think he ought to face criminal charges?
Well,
Steve interrupted, but for the wrong reason. He should have told her to get to the point. Saying Tony is legally responsible is questionable, however. Bring that up later.
My Fire Fauci Act asked for a full investigation because we've suspected all along that he is criminally liable. Here's why. If you go back, you can go back to 2012, you can go back to 2014, where Anthony Fauci was using American tax dollars and sending it to the Wuhan lab to fund this research that was creating viruses.
If that's true, Marjorie, then why the fuck are you wasting so much time harassing AOC, carrying on about rights and American freedom, comparing mask-wearing policies to the Holocaust, and any other shit that you may have said that I either didn't hear about or just forgotten due to the building pile of bullshit manufactured by you psychotic Republicans over the fucking years?
Why is there any need to create a virus that can spread rapidly through a population, make people sick and kill them? That's a bioweapon. So we need to be very clear about what was the intent of COVID-19 and these viruses that they experiment with, like some sort of Dr. Frankenstein experiments. These are bioweapons. There's no other reason to create a virus that makes people sick, spreads so quick, and kills people. There's no other intent, but it's a bioweapon. And
can you prove that COVID is a bioweapon? When are you going to start walking us through your case against Tony? If this is it, it's void because you've only accused Tony at this point. Nothing but word salad so far.
then our American.
You don't buy. Hold on. You don't. You hang on. You don't buy the. You don't buy the argument that say, hey, the gain of function is all because we got to take these viruses and we got to power them up to look for vaccines and to look for other solutions in case somehow they come up with this. You don't buy. You don't buy the logic of that. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't buy it because I don't believe in evolution. I don't believe in that type of so-called science. I don't believe in evolution. I believe in God.
Steve interrupts again, but for the wrong reason. Marjorie not buying into something is completely irrelevant. As for you, Marjorie, you know COVID does exist, and even if it was manufactured, that's still science. Many Christians would tell a skeptic that it doesn't matter if they don't believe. This would apply to you in this case, Marjorie. As for God, even if evolution is false and God is real, that would mean God is responsible for making us vulnerable to these viruses and diseases, which makes God just as bad as your low opinion of evolution. So, my question to you on that front is, why do you side with God? Our vulnerability is our fault? Okay, what does God have to do with anything then? God created us? Would we be vulnerable if He didn't create us or just didn't want to be obeyed? Which is why we're in this mess to begin with? You can condemn Tony for being responsible as far back as 2012, but God gets a free pass because He's our creator? How does that work? And how do you excuse God making us vulnerable, as I've just explained that God being the creator and wanting obedience is why we're vulnerable, not Adam and Eve?
And there's these viruses were not making people sick until they created them and made them into weaponize these viruses to be able to attach to our cells and make us sick. This has caused so many people to die all over the world. This is a bioweapon.
Aside from your belief in God, Steve asked for your walkthrough of Tony's criminal responsibility, which you obviously aren't going to give us. Even if Tony is guilty, that means COVID does exist. While you've gone on about American freedom, rights, and the Holocaust, what has Donald done about any of this?
You can call it, people can call it whatever they can for research and to create, vaccinations, but there's no need for a vaccine if the virus doesn't make the human population sick to begin with. So I think it's a very disturbing type of research. I think and I don't think our American tax dollars should ever be funding it. And so I have a problem with that from the beginning, and I want an investigation into it.
Wait a minute. There hasn't been an investigation yet? How can you have a fucking walkthrough about Tony being a part of it if it hasn't been investigated yet? Why is this interview even going on? How could Steve and Donald be right and truthful if no investigation has been done?
Then secondly, we know it's very clear. It's very clear what happened, that this virus came out of the Wuhan lab. It made those 3 scientists sick early on, and then it spread. And Anthony Fauci is on record back in 2014. He's on video talking about saying, well, there's a particular case that perhaps these SARS viruses, these viruses could escape the wet markets and cause a pandemic. Well, what was the very reason they told us that COVID-19 spread in the first place? We were told, it was a virus from a bat that escaped the wet market and has become a pandemic. And then we need to look at China's, where is China involved? Because China knew right away these people were sick. They knew right away where this virus came from. And then they allowed millions of people to travel, leaving the Wuhan region, leaving that area.
Yeah.
So Donald's solution was to fire that team of experts instead of investigating? Why weren't you telling Donald to call for an investigation at that time, Marjorie?
Traveling all over China and then all over the world. So there's a link, and it needs to be investigated, and people need to be held accountable.
We've got a minute left, but basically for viruses like SARS, you're not opposed to doing research on to find out what if there are viruses out there, scientists to find therapeutics, etc. You're not opposed to the study of viruses. You're opposed, I just want to make sure I understand this, you're opposed to the gain of function which power up these viruses that are found in nature. I just want to make sure I understand that. Correct?
Yes, that is exactly right. I'm not opposed to research.
How can any research be done if that particular science is fraudulent, as you don't believe in it? Why is an investigation required if God is in control? What is there to investigate if God is in control?
Of course, we need to research viruses, but I am opposed to creating viruses. And that's what they did. They created a virus, and this virus clearly escaped the Wuhan lab and killed people.
You know COVID was created, but you want an investigation and research done, while you are against this type of science because you believe in God and side with this being, and not evolution. Creating the virus was obviously a part of God's plan if it was created, don't you think, Marjorie? Maybe God should be investigated. No? Why not? You're the one who invoked God. You were against this virus creation and blamed Tony criminally for it, so you obviously understand this virus is bad for people, but you've brought God into it. Was that only to take a shot against evolution because it doesn't provide an afterlife for you?